Welcome to another episode of the Formerly Intoxicated Podcast. In today's episode, I am thrilled to be welcoming a remarkable individual. She wears many hats with grace and ease and purpose. So please join me in welcoming Hannah Elizabeth, aka Tinkahantas.
Hi guys, how are you?
So I have a little introduction, a bio to give people a more formal introduction to who you are and some of the amazing projects and purposes that you've served in your lifetime and here in Phoenix. So go ahead and read this and then we'll get into a conversation. Sound good? Okay. Welcome Hannah Elizabeth, aka Tinkahantas. Hannah is an educator who brings curriculum into controlled settings, causing learning and growth from the inside out. Her wisdom and mindset unlocks shackles for spiritual prisoners, causing the soul to be set free. Deep knowledge and understanding accompany her delivery, and the learner is left with an indescribable impact, course-correcting the mind, heart, and spirit. Her unconditional love and acceptance is felt everywhere she goes, and her calming aura bathes you in peace. Her witty aphorisms cause you to see things you've never seen, hear things you've never heard, and be a new version of yourself in power and in wholeness. Tinkahantas is a community leader with thephoenix.org and has served the recovery community extensively. She has hosted a series of different types of events ranging from sober concerts to driving range outings on the golf course, from photography walks to mocktail nights, and many more, creating safe and inclusive spaces for individuals to find joy and connection on their journey to wellness. Hailing from Napa Valley, California, Hannah's journey has taken her far and wide, from the shores of Tampa to the expansive landscape of Texas, and now finding herself in the vibrant city of Phoenix, Arizona. With a diverse background spanning over 2 decades, Hannah brings a wealth of experience to the table. From her extensive experience in the real estate industry to her passion for personal training, her journey has been as dynamic as it has been enriching. It doesn't show, but Hannah also has decades worth of experience raising children. Her kids, now 18 and 22, stand as a testament to her nurturing and guiding and motherly spirit. However, it is in the realm of education and holistic health where her professional calling currently lies. Not just content with pursuing her passions, Hannah is a beacon for service and empowerment in her community and personal life. She's also the founder of Growing Younger Health and Wellness, an organization dedicated to nurturing the mind, body, and spirit. Through events, workshops, and the joy of shared meals and good company, Hannah is fostering connection and empowering individuals to embrace a holistic approach to wellness with the assistance of food, fitness, and fun. Today, we have the honor and the privilege of diving into the depths of Hannah's mind, exploring her unique journey and uncovering the wisdom that she's gained along the way. So without further ado, let's extend a warm welcome to our beautiful, amazing guest, Hannah Elizabeth, aka Tinkahantas.
Wow, thank you so much. That was amazing.
You're welcome.
Honored to be described that way. Thank you.
My pleasure. Remember, I told the class today we coach on Fridays at a treatment center. I had a professor in college, and he was one of my favorite professors, and it had been 4 years since I'd seen him. And we crossed paths, and I said, "It's so good to see you." And he said,
"It's so good to be seen."
"It's so good to be seen."
Thank you for seeing me.
I see you.
I feel very seen right now.
Amazing. Well, yeah, that's only scratching the surface of the amazing work that you've done as a leader and as a coach and just as a sister and a daughter, all of the amazing roles that you play. I want to lean a little bit further into the lane of holistic health and nutrition and the way that ties into recovery. I think given the nature of the Formerly Intoxicated podcast and its presence and growth in the recovery community, I think our listeners and me personally could benefit from having a discussion around the impact that nutrition has on the recovery process, things of that nature. So why don't we just start with the inception of your journey to health and wellness? We've talked about it a little bit here and there about the way you were raised and whatnot, but can you run us by the history? Like, how did you know that health and wellness was something you wanted to pursue? Where was that seed planted, and how has it grown into where you are today?
I get it from my mama.
I got it from my mama.
For real though. Thank you very much for that beautiful introduction. I just want to express deep gratitude for the thought and the detail that you went into to create that introduction. So very grateful. My journey started in Napa Valley in 1983, a long time ago. I was raised on a 65-acre farm on the side of a mountain, and we had goats and chickens and fruit trees and nut trees, and we had a huge garden. And my mom and my dad, mostly my mom, raised us in nature. She raised us in the dirt. She raised us in the sunshine. She raised us in a life of holistic health. And from a very young age, also coming from the Seventh-day Adventist community, we were taught a lot about health and eating clean and basically modeling after the Daniel diet, if anybody's heard of that. I was raised vegetarian, so we would drink fresh goat's milk from our goats, eat the chicken eggs from our chickens, and my mom would literally go get bags and bags of wheat kernels to grind into flour to make bread and all kinds of baked items for us. So I spent my childhood in the kitchen making food with my mom and my sisters, and learned a lot about nutrition and nutrients and micronutrients and how healthy soil produces healthy food, and the value of sunlight and the value of breathing oxygen and the value of exercise and the value of healthy mindset and healthy spirit and healthy just environment, just as a foundational fundamental of my experience. So when I was growing up, I thought it was normal that everybody lived like that. But obviously when you're little, you don't know what you don't know. So we were very exposed to herbs and understanding our immune system from a very young age. My mom used to have us eat raw garlic for breakfast when we were little and tell us about how the garlic was cleaning out our bodies and killing all the germs and all the things like that. And really kind of just from a very, very young age in a deep fundamental way taught me the importance of returning to nature for your health and returning to natural, holistic, green, organic living, and not just buying the organic label, but living an organic lifestyle. So it comes from very deep roots for me. I like raw food. It's not the only thing I eat, but anyways.
Well, shout out Flora. Shout out to all the mamas out there, the baby mamas, so they say outcasts or something like that. But yeah, that's amazing. Our environment plays such a impactful and influential role on the way that we grow and the interests that we develop. And that's one of the reasons why I think we're both so passionate about the youth, about inspiring and providing guidance and mentorship for the next generation, because not everybody is really fortunate enough to have that kind of a positive, environment or influences in their earlier years, and I'm sure it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows. Can you run us through what some of those darker days might have looked like, and what your experience was maybe being introduced to drugs and alcohol, and just to give some perspective on your experience with that?
Yeah. So, one of the villains in my childhood was sugar. My mother demonized it, and don't think I ate a Snickers bar till I was 5 years old, and my brother snuck it into the house for me. Okay. Shout out Lenny. But she would make us muffins and cakes and cookies and brownies that were made out of carob powder and avocados and that kind of thing, and we would still eat the sweets and the treats, but they would be super healthy. And so from a very young age, I learned that sugar, like the white refined concentrated high fructose stuff that's not actually natural, was not good for me. And so with that being said, I think without even understanding it, from a very young point of growth in my experience, I was aware of my dopamine system without being aware of my dopamine system. So, fast forward, I lived a pretty healthy lifestyle as a child. When I became like 12, 13 is kind of when things went sideways for me. I was like the straight A student at school, always helping everyone finish their homework, like just really positive and doing my best to be a good like role model or a leader. But my parents ended up like having a hard time, and my dad ended up like moving away to another state to start a new job before we did. And it was like a 6-month lag time for us to finish the school year. So during that 6 months, things kind of went like weird because it now was a 1-parent household and I became the second parent, but I was also like angry and abandoned and had all these emotional things going on in my own experience and didn't know how to handle it or how to like lead in that state. And so I started rebelling, and it was right around the time when, I was going to church, and church was like, by the way, I respect all pathways of spirituality and religion. I'm not here to preach or teach about one specific way. I honor everybody's sovereignty. Let me just like neutralize that real quick. But in my experience, they were like, God loves you unconditionally, but if you do this, this, and this, you're going to hell. So I was like, wait, excuse me? Hold on. That doesn't sound right. You just told me God loves me unconditionally, but I got to follow the rules or I'm not accepted. And so my rebellious nature said, well, I'm going to rebel against all of this then and test God. And so I started like finding things to do wrong. Like I started like seeking out ways to rebel and like express my anger and abandonment and my sadness through like bad behaviors, which is when I started like drinking alcohol. And that looked like me stealing bottles from the store, me stealing bottles from other people's houses, and like drinking a lot and not knowing how it was like affecting my body. And I got really, really drunk a few times and ended up throwing up everywhere, obviously. But like as a child, I didn't know what I was doing. I was just acting out. Fast forward, I tried drugs, I tried weed, I tried coke, I tried meth, I tried all kinds of stuff, like trying to fit into the groups that I was hanging out with, trying to like be accepted socially and like all the things, how it goes. But like genuinely my body was just like, no, what are you doing? Don't do that. No, what are you doing? That's not good. No, this is not for you. What are you doing? And so I would find myself on these like couple day experiences or binges or whatever, like can't wait to be sober again. And so like drugs and I never really got along, but alcohol and I ended up having a very toxic relationship for a long time, if I'm honest. Alcohol, it's not my body that wanted the alcohol, because my body was like, why are you doing this to me? Why are you torturing me? You're going to have a hangover tomorrow. Like, what are you doing? But it was my anger and my rejection and my abandonment. It was like the deep rooted things that were triggering me to think that I needed to put a substance like that in my body that was wanting the alcohol. It was beneath the alcohol. And like we talk about in recovery, the drugs are never the problem. The drugs are the solution. Technically. Kind of, you can look at it that way, but it's not true, because the drugs actually cause more problems. The alcohol actually causes more problems. And for me, I was just trying to soothe. I was trying to like medicate and remedy. And so, yeah.
Thank you for sharing. So it sounds like you've dabbled in most of everything, from weed to coke to meth to opium a little bit.
I tried opium, I tried LSD, I tried
psychedelics, like alcohol,
pretty
so the
much
whole lot.
Everything except crack and heroin.
Okay. So a deeper part of you was always aware, calling you back to a life of health and wellness. And now flash forward, decades, and you're deeply involved in a journey of health and wellness, not only a personal journey, but guiding others through that process. I think it's really interesting to hear you speak about the correlation between nutrition and addiction, or the foods that we consume and some of the substances that are commonly associated with addiction, right? So some people may not be aware of the correlation between something like high fructose corn syrup or sugar and drugs that are drugs like cocaine that maybe hit some of the same dopamine receptors. Can you shed a little bit of light on the correlation between sugar and the way that that impacts the dopamine system?
Sure. So if we zoom out a little bit even more than that and not hyper focus on sugar or dopamine or any of the like specifics, what we're really talking about is the fundamental of human behavior and operant conditioning, and conditioning in general, because the human body is so complex and intricate and beautiful. One of the things your body is always doing to maintain your health and your balance and all of your systems constantly is called homeostasis. And so basically what that means is there's this constant effort of your chemicals to neutralize your body. For example, has anybody ever had a sugar crash? Okay, let me explain caffeine and the sugar crash to you. So caffeine is usually understood as a stimulant, but it's actually not. It's a mimicker of a neurochemical called adenosine. And basically adenosine's function in your body is to calm you and keep you level enough to know when it's time to sleep or to rest. Okay. The opposite of adenosine are neurochemicals like norepinephrine, adrenaline, and those are like your stimulant chemicals that your body produces naturally. So the way that adenosine and caffeine work is it's 5 a.m., you get up, you drink your coffee. Basically what you're doing is plugging up the adenosine receptors with the caffeine. So imagine a key and a lock. Okay. So your neurons are separated, and the way that your brain works is it fires lightning from one neuron to the next, which are called neurochemicals or action potentials, or your brain is actually firing. Okay. And the chemicals that are sent from one to the next are received in a very specific way. So remember back in the day when you were little, you would play the game, put the round peg in the round hole and the square peg in the square hole and the star peg in the star hole, right? It's like a very basic game that we played when we were little. Your neurochemistry and your gut microbiome work the same way. And let me explain. So caffeine molecule has a specific shape. Adenosine molecule has a specific shape. And the receptor to these neurochemicals, molecules, I'm not sure if they're neurochemicals or molecules or can be considered both, so please quote me. But the receptors are specifically shaped. So caffeine will bind to caffeine receptors. Adenosine will bind to adenosine receptors. Norepinephrine will bind to norepinephrine receptors, et cetera, et cetera. The thing about caffeine and adenosine is that they are so similar that caffeine mimics adenosine and caffeine can fit into the adenosine receptors. And so what that means is you drink the caffeine, it's binding up all your adenosine receptors. So it's basically blocking any balance of calm that your body produces naturally. The caffeine does its thing. All the gates are left open. Your body is like amped and hyped. By the way, a lot of the stimulation you get from your coffee is from the massive amounts of sugar that you're ingesting along with the caffeine. It's important to know how much you're drinking every day. But basically what happens is the caffeine molecule has a lifetime. It only lives for a certain amount of time before it disintegrates and no longer becomes effective in your body. So it's called a half-life. The half-life of caffeine basically dies, and then it falls off the receptor. And what has happened the whole time that your caffeine has been blocking your adenosine receptors is that the adenosine your body naturally produces is still being produced. It's just kind of floating around and has nowhere to go because it doesn't have the place to be received because the caffeine has blocked it. So the caffeine dies off. All of a sudden, all the receptors are open. All the adenosine floods in and boom, you have your crash because your body's like, finally, we can do what we're supposed to do. Caffeine, get the heck out of here. All the adenosine goes to work. And then all of a sudden you're like, why am I feeling like I'm falling asleep right now? Because your body's doing what it was naturally designed to do. So, sorry, I just nerded out on caffeine.
No, that's great. It's really interesting. So, to my understanding, we have a neurochemical called adenosine that is an indicator for it's a natural regulatory neurochemical that soothes or calms our state when it's time to be tired or gauging our energy. And caffeine blocks the neuroreceptors for that specific neurochemical so that it essentially, like, it's not energy that we're receiving, it's blocking the fact that we're not tired.
It's like a dam. It's like a dam.
You said it way better than
flow.
I could. It was, yeah, I'm excited to listen back to that. That was really interesting. And that makes a lot of sense. So in your experience of navigating cravings for sugar or caffeine or even food or social media, right? Some of these more normalized patterns of consumption that may trigger or fulfill or numb or pacify some of the same tension that might lead someone to addiction coping through drugs. How do we find balance and a healthy degree of consumption or awareness around these more normalized influences like social media or like caffeine or like food? How do we develop a healthy relationship to these influences that we're all living with in a normalized culture?
So the first step is awareness. We must parent ourselves, honestly. We all have an inner child inside of us. Mine's probably like 3 or 4. I have a vision or a visual of her. But, you know, the many hats that I wear, one of them does include mother. And it's natural for me to mother my own children. But it's less natural for me to mother myself and play that role in my own experience because I'm not the only one that has multiple voices going on in their head. And I'm not like talking about like crazy voices. I'm talking like the self-talk voices, the voices that are a dialogue of like what you think about when you meet somebody new, or that song that's playing in your head in the background that you're like, oh crap, I do have a song playing in my head right now. Or that voice that says, why did you think that? That's not very cool. Why would you think that anyways? And like the second voice that's scolding your first voice. Okay, so these are all like reflective states of being, right? So being aware of what you're doing, what you're consuming, how you're consuming it, when you're consuming it, and thinking about it and approaching it from a conscious, aware state is the first step. So think about what you're thinking about. Think about what you're consuming. Consciously choose it. If you find yourself in a state of impulse, take a step. Go. Sometimes when I find myself in a state of anxiety, I will literally start moving in slow motion on purpose, like actually half time or slower than I would normally move. So I can pattern interrupt my own energy and my own like chemicals and say, no, I'm still in control here. I'm having a chemical reaction of anxiety right now inside of me. My thoughts are going crazy because I have a lot to think about or a lot to process, but I'm still in control of my experience. And so I will literally pattern interrupt. I'll take a break. I'll go for a walk. By the way, 5-minute walks, 10-minute walks, those are very, very, very powerful. There's tons of studies online if you want to go down that rabbit hole of how a 10 to 20-minute walk a day literally relieves depression. It activates your brain. It helps you in your circulation. It gives you sunlight in some cases. I mean, there's just so many benefits to taking instead of exercising your thumbs constantly, like I'm guilty of sometimes, right? We could exercise our whole bodies. And who in here could maybe benefit from another 10-minute walk a day or one or two a week? I don't know. And also like finding ways to seek out hiking or going to the beach or wherever you live, depending on your terrain, going for walks, like literally go to a beautiful nature preserve or find a mountain. One of my favorite things to do, literally, I struggle with waking up in the morning sometimes, if I'm honest. But something that makes me jump out of bed is the idea of going to the mountain to climb to the top to watch the sunrise at the top of the mountain. Like literally that fires me up so much. I don't know why. It's like food for my soul to be at the top of the mountain to greet the sun. Oh gosh, like it just does something to you. It changes you to be able to say, dang, Hannah, you freaking did it. You're here and it's not even sunrise yet. And honestly, awareness is the first step. And then activating your will is like so important. Okay. Because a lot of times we don't know what we don't know. There's a lot about health and nutrition and the medical system and the FDA and all the things that we're unaware of. And I'm not here to call anybody out or say anything bad. I'm here to say it is our sovereign responsibility as a human in our individual experiences to be aware and in control of what we're doing to our physical bodies, what we're doing to our minds, what we're doing to our spirits. And if we're going to complain about the results that we have in our experience, we have to first take responsibility for how we got there because it didn't happen by accident. It might have happened unconsciously, but it didn't happen by accident. Because if somebody was really coming at you trying to break down your door to like harm your physical body, you would fight back. But what if it's us, the one that is using the spoon or the fork every day to like harm our physical bodies? And a lot of times it's because we don't have alternatives. We don't have knowledge. We don't have the understanding. We don't have the awareness yet of what we're actually doing. So that's why I'm here with Growing Younger Health and Wellness. Like I told you from the beginning of our experience, I'll teach you everything I know. Please ask me a ton of questions. I believe in self-inquiry. Believe in questioning yourself, questioning others, and genuinely, life is not about finding the answers. It's about asking ourselves the really hard questions because we already have the answers in us. So what questions are you seeking answers to today?
Wow. It's so interesting to just listen to you talk about your perspective on the mind and the body and your approach to navigating health and nutrition, especially as someone who is a little bit different than me, right? Like I've really, really struggled with addiction and compulsive consumption, and it's my responsibility to take responsibility for those patterns of behavior and to interrupt and to reprogram and to work my steps and develop an accountability structure, right, to make the change. But on a fundamental level, there are some people that really, really wrestle with addiction, and then there are others that are capable of just kind of putting drugs and alcohol down. And from my understanding, from what you've shared with me over the course of our time together, you've had no issue just walking away from certain substances or alcohol, or you haven't necessarily needed a specific program of recovery. There's not that compulsive part of your mind that's programmed to consume. I want more. I want more. I want it now. I want as much as I can get, right? Like the way that addict part of my brain works, you see things differently, right? They call normies, right? Like what are your thoughts on that? What is it like being a normie just in your own personal experience? And then contextually, what has your experience been as an ally And what do you think needs to change or shift, or just, if you're honest, what are your thoughts on that?
So it's been an honor to learn everything that I've learned about addiction and recovery over the last couple of years, just by being in the community and in the line of work that we're in, and, you know, working with different populations and different environments. I'm not going to say I've never struggled with addiction, because that wouldn't be true, because there have been times in my life where I knew that drinking was a bad idea and I still did it anyways. Or I didn't want to drink and I got really plastered that night and did some dumb shit. And, you know, if I'm honest, like, it hasn't been an easy thing to overcome. I'm not going to sit here and pretend like, oh, I'm better than everybody, I can just quit. That's not true. The difference that I've found in my own journey with my struggle with alcohol from like 10 years ago, 20 years ago to today is that I've been doing the work. Like, the things that were wanting me to drink, the sadness, the loneliness, the anger, all those deep underlying, like, buried things, those were the things that were calling in the drugs and alcohol. Those were the things that wanted the substances. And for me, just getting real with myself and doing the work, like going there and actually having the meltdown, having the breakdown, getting to the root of the issue, going through the trauma again to heal it, and have less and less of my pain, less and less of my anger, less and less of my rejection, less and less of my frustration, all the things. It's through the healing process that my body has just naturally said, okay, this no longer is actually causing a positive experience for you. It's just straight negative at this point. So don't do it. And physiologically, my body literally rejects it at this point, because the stress, emotion, and energy and pain that I was carrying in my physical body is no longer present for the alcohol to counteract. So anymore, it's just poison. I'm not going to say I'm never lonely. I'm not going to say I'm never angry. That's not true either. But what I am going to say is that I understand why they were in my experience and why they were, you know, unresolved issues or unspoken words or, you know, traumas and wounds that I'd never addressed. You know, going there and doing the work has caused me to feel more whole and feel more happy and feel more blessed and feel more good, to the point where I don't even want to think about dumbing down my energy or dumbing down my spirit with substances. I truly believe that you have the ability to heal, because we weren't born, like, there's some cases where babies are born due to the impact of what was in the system of the parent. But 99 times out of 100, nobody's born with an alcohol addiction. Nobody's born with an opiate addiction. Nobody's born with a meth addiction. You know, these things develop and are effects and outcomes of patterns of behavior, choices, and experiences. And so all we got to do is go back to the root. Go back to reverse engineer the experience and go back to the origination point. There's this Rumi quote that says, "The wound is where the light either enters or exits." And so going back to the original wound of what you're experiencing, like, for me, it was like abandonment. You know, I can honestly say, like, during that time of 12 to 13, when my parents were in different households and we were like living in a whole new experience, all of a sudden I felt abandoned. I begged my dad not to leave. I cried. It was really hard for me to understand why he was just leaving us, you know. And it wasn't that he was leaving us, because my parents are still married today. They're still together. But he had to go relocate before we did. And I didn't understand. And so I started acting from the place of abandonment at that point in my life. And that pattern, that reinforced behavior set, basically modeled my relationships from that point. And so basically, it's kind of weird how humans will reenact their traumas, because it's unresolved and it's an unclosed loop of energy that needs to just be grounded. It's like a live wire out there in our emotions and our minds. And so what I've learned about my own addictions and overcoming them is that, if we just keep, it's like the difference between healing and treatment. There's a couple schools of thought that say multiple different things about healing. Some people say you can't be healed because healing is impossible, but that's not true. Healing is possible. Some people say that we don't need to be healed because we're not broken. Well, I think I can heal from a lot of things at this point, and I'm not perfect, so I'm going to continue to heal. Some people say that you can't use the word heal when you're talking about natural supplements or herbs or anything like that because you can't make that claim. But the whole point of going and having physical surgery and your body repairing itself is the process of healing. So your body naturally is inclined to heal itself. What I'm getting at is doing the work to heal the deeper wound will naturally resolve the negative outcomes in your experience. And it doesn't just happen once. It happens through repetition and reinforcement, which is how you started the negative behavior pattern to begin with. Because you don't just do one thing one time and it's automatically a habit. Habits form over periods of time through reinforcement, either by repetition or by an extreme emotional experience that anchors that habit into your life. So to encapsulate what your question is healing is a process. Recovering is a process. I don't know if anybody's ever going to get to this like definitive line of black and white, because humans aren't like that. Humans are very dynamic, complex beings, and we're on a spectrum of everything constantly. I don't believe in only two choices, yes or no. I don't believe in that. I believe that at the very most fundamental level of existence, without getting into quantum science, which we can talk about if you want, we have protons, electrons, and neutrons, which means that positive charge, negative charge, and neutrality are meant to exist everywhere. So sadly, society in the world, in the majority of life, literally offers you black and white, protons or electrons, right? Positive or negative, red or blue, whatever the thing is, the dichotomy. What about neutrality? What if we could neutralize, like homeostasis, or the way that your body naturally wants to create balance, and get you back to the 0 point and go straight to neutral? What if we could just observe our experience? What if we could just not have to feel like we have to participate in everything? And I'm probably bunny trailing right now, but that's okay.
That's okay. No, thank you for sharing. So through addressing the underlying trauma or turmoil or tension or life experiences that led to the emotional result or consequences that ultimately then led to a desire to self-medicate or numb through alcohol or pursue escapism, that's ultimately what's empowered you with the freedom of choice. We're no longer enslaved to the patterns of our past or the emotional resonance of their impact on us through doing the work, whether that's in a 12-step program of recovery, therapy, even just heart-to-heart conversations with people that you trust, processing those experiences in some sort of a safe container. We're now walking ourselves into a new chapter where vision and purpose and principles have space to breathe and to be the beacon for our focus, our life, our direction, right? So now that you've created that space, and from what I understand about your journey, you've carried that sense of purpose throughout your entire life, regardless. You've held space for service. You've held space for vision. You've held space for mission. You've held space for all the things that are true to you, even amidst some of those self-defeating or self-sabotaging behaviors, right? They've lived hand in hand to some degree, and we all contend with that, right? But in this next chapter of your journey, designing your life and being on both the giving and receiving end of high-level elite coaching that is, assisting you in establishing the systems and processes necessary to accomplish your goals and your dreams. Shout out Ideal. What is that vision? Will you share?
I'm glad you asked.
Okay,
oh
yeah.
My gosh.
Like in its most expressed form, anything you'd like to share about. So yeah, what does that say? Go confidently in the direction of your dreams, live the life you've imagined.
So this is one of my favorite quotes by Henry David Thoreau, right?
Will you read it?
It says, "Go confidently in the direction of your dreams and live the life you've always imagined." And so for me, that means I'm about to heal this planet one human at a time. And we're all going to grow younger. And I know that sounds like a big claim, but hear me out, okay? So there's this mission called Tikkun Olam. It's part of a Jewish tradition, and it means heal the planet. It's about repairing the world. And we all have a responsibility because we came from the earth and we're going to go back to the earth. Like, we are literally the earth, right? In walking form, with a spirit and a soul, experiencing the senses, which includes food. I love food. But my mission is to heal the planet one human at a time. And upon learning what Tikkun Olam means, I realized that it's that mission too. Okay. So it's not just because of that, but, I desire to teach as many people as I can possibly teach about how your physical body works, how food and nutrition plays into helping you stay in an optimal health, about how not just your secondary food, like the food on your plate, helps your experience, but your primary food, which is something I learned in my coaching training. I went to Institute for Integrative Nutrition for their year-long health certified integrative health coach certification. It was really, really informative. And I learned a lot. Primary food is the term to describe everything that we consume that is not food. Secondary food is the food on your plate. So primary food includes the environments you hang out in, the music you listen to, the social media, the books you read, the relationships you have, the ways you're enriching your experience, your exercise, everything you could possibly consume and or benefit from that you experience in the day is your primary food. Your secondary food is your food you eat and drink and the nutrition factors that you introduce into your experience. Primary food is so important, and I feel like everyone has like such a sovereign experience in their own life that they get to decide what that means. So I'm not here to talk really much about primary food. I'm super, super passionate about micronutrients, eating healthy, herbs, vitamins, how to understand your immune system, and most importantly, the gut-brain axis, which is the connection between your gut health and your mental health. And there's a lot of new science that is emerging, like epigenetics and the power of healing through the mind and energy work. And one of the other modalities that I do is called pranic healing. And I work with Master Ko, who also works with Tony Robbins to do pranic healing in his seminars. But through pranic healing, we work with the energy body and your aura and your chakras, which is also an Eastern tradition, more widely known in the Orient. But basically, we are not just our physical bodies. We are a physical body, mental body, energy body, spiritual body, auric body, quantum body. There's multiple layers to who we are as a human. And our physical body is how we interface with the 3D world. So it's so, so, so important to keep the channels clean. And what I mean is the food and nutrition that you introduce into your physical body literally affects every single other layer of your being. So understanding how your gut health impacts your mental health, and your mental health literally is the CPU of your experience, that is going to determine how you experience your whole life. mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, energetic health. A lot of times when we aren't feeling well, we go to the doctor and the doctor addresses a symptom and it's only addressed towards your physical body. Lately, in the last few years, especially since, the epidemic that we just experienced as a whole, mental health is becoming more and more to the forefront of like acceptable and open things that humans are talking about right now. 10 years ago, 20 years ago, when I was younger, if you needed mental health or to talk to a counselor, like there was something wrong with you and like it was super taboo and nobody wanted to really admit that. So we would all just like stuff our stuff, And I realized that that's what's causing all my trauma right now is like me continually compressing and compacting these things that I need to decompress and unpack and understand. And it was causing lots of, bad outcomes. The math wasn't working. So understanding the simplicity of how the food you eat affects everything about your life, how clean your water is affects everything about your life because your physical body reacts and responds to the details. Basically, it's super important to understand, just like we talked about a minute ago, about the neurochemistry. You have gut chemistry that communicates. So you've heard of serotonin, right? It's like the happy chemical that your brain makes. Well, the truth is your brain utilizes it, but it's made mostly in your gut. So like 90% of our serotonin is actually formulated in our gut. Have you seen like the fishermen with the boats and they have these big net fish, they're fishing, but they have like big nets that they're like just scooping fish with, right? Okay. So in your gut, you have this lining and it's called the microbiome and it looks like kind of like a fish net. It has small holes. It's meant to keep the toxins and the bad things out of your bloodstream and meant to absorb the nutrients and good micronutrients into your bloodstream. So when we eat, I keep saying humans, animals too, whenever we eat bad food, like processed oils, processed food, lots of carbs, non-living food, like lots of fast food, for example, especially fried, greasy things. Basically what we're doing is we're coating the lining of our gut to not function properly. The oils will clog the receptors to not be able to receive our nutrition that we're eating in our food. And or if we're eating a lot of acidic foods that may like get clogged up in our system, it causes inflammation and causes the lining to like literally disintegrate and deteriorate. So all the bad things that it's meant to keep out are going into your bloodstream. So what is the most important thing that I could recommend about understanding gut health is gut health is largely related to the pH of the food that you're eating. So getting into more details, a lot of, the pH level 7, and the biggest way you guys can learn about this is by going to the water aisle at the grocery store and looking for alkaline water. And you're going to notice once you start looking that there's a lot of different levels of alkalinity. 7 is the like neutral level. 7 is where humans are meant to kind of be at, right? When we get into 6, 5, and 4, that means we're eating a lot of acidic foods. We're eating fried foods, processed, lots of sugar. It causes inflammation and irritability in our systems. When we're raising our alkaline levels in our body to 8, 9, and 10 or higher, that means that we're eating a lot of fresh, natural, whole foods, greens, fruits and vegetables, lots of legumes and beans, like naturally occurring whole, uncooked, unprocessed foods are very alkaline. Raising our levels of alkalinity affects our bodies in so many ways. It helps your immune system. It helps you cleanse and clean your body through your endocrine system. Your kidneys and your liver work better. Just everything about you, your blood is just like living better in your body. So to get back to what you were saying, it's so important to understand that mental health really starts at the end of your fork. it's not the only thing that affects your mental health. People go through trauma. People go through hard, terrible situations. People go through heartbreak. And, even the positive experiences that we have in our life that cause stress and pressure, we still go through stuff, right? So you can't just say it's only food, it's only nutrition. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is the gateway to start remedying these things is through the end of your fork, is through how much sunlight are you allowing into your body? How much clean, filtered water are you drinking? By the way, I challenge everybody watching this to literally stop drinking tap water right now.
Oh yeah, that's a non-negotiable. So, wow, amazing. Thank you for sharing. Where do we go from here? So, alkalinity, what are the specific ways that I can... You've stumped me. Hold on. I'm having a brain fart, so give me just one moment.
I'm sorry, not sorry. I like to talk about a lot of things. So...
We started on your vision. That was my question. Okay. What's your vision?
My vision is...
it was great. That was such a wonderful answer. So, but go ahead.
Okay. My vision is to heal the planet. Okay.
Okay. Oh, I wanted to touch on that. I'm going to push back just to challenge me too, to challenge myself. I've identified a component of my mission as preventing relapse, right? So knowing what we know about the power of the mind, our reason, our intuition, our imagination, our memory, our will, right? Our capacity for critical thinking, these mental faculties. What's beyond the healing? What's beyond the prevention of relapse? Words carry so much weight, and inherently they imply the yin to the yang, right? If I'm healing, there's an implication there that I'm wounded. Mm-hmm. If I'm preventing relapse, there's an indication that I'm in danger of feeding into the compulsive behaviors. So to challenge you and to challenge me, what's beyond the healing the planet one human at a time? What's beyond the prevention of relapse?
Growing younger. Growing younger. Okay, so do you guys think it's possible to grow younger? Do you think it's possible to grow younger?
I mean, yes. The concept of growing younger is ambiguous to me. Like it could mean many different things to many different people. So please, what's your perspective on it?
So also for me, it means many different things. So let me start from kind of where I'm starting from. Okay. So growing younger is a concept, and I'm not even sure where it originated from, other than when I heard it, I'm like, yeah, that's definitely, it resonates. That is part of me. I want to know more about that. I want to introduce that into my experience. I want to amplify this. So has anybody ever heard of telomeres? Telomeres?
Through you and Lenny, but so telomeres are what exactly?
Okay, so our chromosomes, we have 23 chromosomes, most people, right? There is a test that can be done to actually determine right around about how long you're going to live by testing your chromosomes. And what they do is they look at your chromosomes and they look at this telomere. And the telomere is basically the tail of your chromosome. And so by the length of your telomere, it kind of gives you a tell on how long you're going to live. So growing younger, like fundamentally to me, means let's figure out a way to lengthen our telomeres and live longer. That was kind of the originating thought. And as I developed the concept within myself and like learned more about telomeres and reversing your biological age, because we can't actually escape our chronological age, but we can reverse our biological age. And if you guys don't believe me, just Google it. There's a short series on Netflix right now called You Are What You Eat. It's a couple episodes of a twin study that they did around measuring biological age and actually putting these twins on strict diets that were differed from each other to decide if the food that you eat actually can affect your biological age immediately. Not going to spoil the results. You guys have to go check it out. But yes, my mission is to reverse your biological age through food and nutrition, through mindset, through habit reframing, through all the things. And growing younger isn't just about telomeres. It's about unlearning. It's about unlearning things that no longer serve you, lightening your load, doing a mental audit, doing an emotional audit, getting real with yourself. It's about asking yourselves the questions that you really need to ask yourself. It's about getting real with yourself, because we already have all the answers. But if I'm honest, sometimes I avoid asking myself the real questions because I don't want to know the answers. I already know the answer, right? So growing younger is about choosing to understand that the way we were raised, potentially, or the things that we learned at a young age, or the environments that we were formed through nature and, nurture, basically may or may not be producing the results that we want in our life. And it's okay to downregulate those beliefs, those habits, those patterns of behavior, those food choices, for example, and give yourself permission to change your mind. Because how are you ever going to change unless you change your mind? It's okay to change your mind. Rule number 1. So growing younger is about releasing old mindsets, releasing old paradigms, releasing old weight physically, releasing old beliefs, releasing old unconscious reactions to things. It's releasing the old way of doing things because this is just how we've always done it, like really getting real with yourself, doing the shadow work, doing the work, because the work is hard. Everything you ever wanted is behind the work you're avoiding right now. But giving yourself permission to be lighter. And I don't mean just by weight, but by like your brilliance of life.
And then what? Releasing the weight, releasing the trauma, releasing, processing through shadow work. And then what?
Once you've gotten through a little bit of that stage, you're going to realize that you are in control of your life to a degree. And the more that you practice growing younger and practice taking control of your experience, you're going to realize that you are in control of the outcomes that you have in your math. Do the math. And then realizing once I do have the ability to actually design my life and create the life that I want, then you start reverse engineering the results you want. So you get really clear on, what do I want my life to look at? Like, what are my goals and visions really? Like, if I could have anything, what would it actually be? And give yourself permission to be the next version of yourself instead of just staying who you've always been because it's comfortable. And once you give yourself permission to grow younger and go back to a less upset version of yourself, or less tainted, damaged, abused, whatever the words are, less dented, if you will, or accepting all of those things for what they are and giving yourself permission to just go back to a more whole, innocent state of being and reverse engineer the math, you can do anything.
And beautiful. Thank you for sharing. So growing younger, from what I understand, is about identifying those past patterns of behavior or the work that is to be done, unlearning the limiting beliefs or behaviors or patterns that have come along with those experiences and that conditioning that we've adopted, relearning a new way and living into that vision with the spirit of youth, with the spirit of joy and peace and curiosity, right? Integrating the positive attributes of the childlike nature, disciplining the child within, parenting self, right? Allowing that part of us to play, but also knowing when it's time to put the toys away and do our work, right? So the overall concept of what you're doing with growing younger and the narrative behind the brand is very interesting to me. there's a book that I really think you would enjoy. I've mentioned it. It's called Building a Story Brand. And your creative mind and approach to life as a curious researcher, or like, like social
seeker. I'm a seeker.
a curious seeker or social scientist. I don't even know if that's a thing, but I think building a story brand might be valuable to you. And then the other thing that came up was I think it's really interesting what on our coaching call with the ideal boys the other night, we had that guest on who wrote the book. What was it? Mistaken Identity. Mm-hmm. His name, I want to honor him. Okay. Mistaken Identity by Doug Dane. Mm-hmm. Okay. So the concept of growing younger also, I believe, is akin to some of what he talked about in this concept of mistaken identity. There are beliefs about who we are and what we can do or what we desire that we've adopted somewhere along the way. And some of those beliefs may, from the outside looking in, actually hold a resonance of power and truth, right? Like maybe one of my beliefs was, may have been, I want to be a baseball player and I can do anything that I'm born to be. I can be anything that I want to be, right? Actually, I want to cut this part out. Yeah, I don't want to go too far down this rabbit hole.
I have something to say.
Okay, hold on. I'm going to edit the episode anyway. So, yeah, everything you just said about growing younger is amazing. So what else do you have to say? God,
so
Jesus.
let me just clarify that when I say growing younger is about unlearning, it's not about going through your brain and memories and clicking delete, 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 delete. It's not about that. Okay. It's different than that. It's more of like a neutralization factor because, we can all kind of relate probably to a degree with the idea of, if you're in a relationship and all of a sudden it ends and you're like, right after the breakup, you're like, I can't even hear his name, blah, 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 all the things, right? We go through this like emotionally charged stage of reflection around certain experiences. Let's talk about our life's traumas, our bad experiences, whatever the things are that still trigger our emotional responses, which is literally chemistry. Okay. What we are doing with growing younger is neutralizing that chemistry by allowing us to heal to a point, rationalize, process, reflect. Maybe we need to make amends. Whatever the process is of healing causes us to be able to look back at that same experience later after the healing and be like, wow, that really sucked. I don't think I ever want to go through that again. But it doesn't trigger you like it used to. So growing younger is about taking you back to the place that causes your triggers to flare up, which causes a chemical dump in your body, which most of the time, if we're honest, is like anxiety, anger, resentment, all the things that bring up the bad stuff, right? And I mean bad stuff as in chemistry that is not positive to our experience, okay? And then because we have this overload of anxiety, anger, resentment, whatever, that's the state in which most people are going to reach for the bottle, reach for the drugs, reach for whatever. It's not when we're happy hiking on the mountain, like in the state of like complete bliss and awe that we're like, I need to go dumb down my experience. And, it's like, no, we're in a good place right now. We don't even need to think about that. So growing younger is about neutralizing the experiences, memories, and energies in our system that cause us to dysregulate to the point where we think we need to self-medicate with substances. So with that being said, go to therapy if you need it. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with therapy. I love therapy. I love when people ask me questions. I love to be able to process things. Not always. I love to be able to go back and reflect on experiences and be able to see myself from a different perspective and be able to notice my growth and healing. Because 5 years ago, if you would have asked me about my divorce, it would have been a different story than today. But because of the work and the healing that I've done in the process, and it's not about just looking at the situation from a 5-year distant perspective. It's about re-identifying ourselves in the experience. It's about saying, dang, I used to be really victim about this. And now I'm going to take responsibility for my part that I played in it. And I'm going to take a little bit of like accountability for this and know that if I keep repeating this same role in the same way and the same behaviors, I'm going to have the same outcome again. So it's probably up to me to do something about this. And giving yourself permission, first of all, we're all imperfect, but let's just be imperfect for a minute and say, dang, that was a big screw up, or not so big, but I don't like the outcome anyways. And just give yourself permission to be authentic. Be real. Like, society wants you to front for everybody. Society wants you to cover your beauty in products. Society wants you to follow the next trend, follow the next fad. What about your original thought? What about your own creativity? What about your own, like, what are you producing in your experience, or are you consuming? You know what I mean? Like, choose to dig into your own soil, like your soul soil, same thing, your soil, and say, if I were a garden, like, what does my garden look like? Is my garden still full of all the sticks and stones everybody's been throwing at me? Is my garden still full of broken trees and the gate is broken so anybody can and anyone can just come through my garden? Or is your garden carefully tended to? Have you gone and tilled the soil and removed the sticks and stones so you can fertilize the dirt and grow beautiful crops, grow beautiful flowers, grow trees, grow whatever you want to grow, build a house? But if you were a garden, what would your garden look like right now? Have you been tending? Have you been getting your hands in the dirt and returning to nature and allowing your physical body to like feel the earth lately? There's a documentary called Heal, and it's very, very amazing science that they're doing. But basically, it's all about the science of grounding. And grounding is basically just getting barefoot in the dirt and allowing your physical body to resonate with the resonance of the earth, because 7.86 hertz is the hertz frequency of Mama Gaia, and it also is the naturally balanced hertz frequency of the human body. So sitting up against a tree, meditating, getting some sunlight, getting into the garden, like maybe plant a real garden. All those things actually cause your blood to flow better, causes your blood to become less sticky. All your systems regulate. Like, there's some serious, powerful healing benefits to just being barefoot. And I don't mean on concrete. I mean like in the dirt. So, I mean, I could probably just keep talking and talking and talking and talking.
To bring it back home, it sounds like to me, for example, the ideal coaching program and community is designed to plant new seeds, identify what do you want out of life, and to put systems and processes in place and accountability to carry out that life vision, reverse engineering what we want. The growing younger program and process that you're developing is guiding people back to those earlier chapters or those pivotal moments that maybe defined or, completely influenced the direction of one's path, processing those experiences that led to the unconscious patterns of behavior, right? Helping them heal through that so that they are in a space where their soil is tilled and they can participate in something like the principle-based process of ideal and goal setting, right? Like, it almost to me sounds like your approach to coaching is the tilling of the soil, and beyond that process of tilling soil is the same foundational principles of what we're learning through ideal, right? Like plant the seed, care for the concept, carry it out through, a process of goals and accountability and strategy. But the thing that I think is so needed, what you're doing, and from what I'm gathering, is you're helping people to do the work that comes before the work, right?
I love that.
You're helping people do the work that comes before the work, because those old patterns of behavior, those skeletons in my closet, I have to make peace with my past and process, so that this next chapter of creating my ideal life and living my dreams and embodying my purpose is a blank slate of neutrality. It's a new life, a new freedom, right? And that's the whole purpose of the 12-step approach to recovery as well, is to take that inventory and to make the amends and to process the resentments and let it go, so that we can move into a new chapter. And there's a huge need for it. So whether somebody's in recovery or sobriety or not, sober curious, regardless, your unique approach to not only tilling the soil of the mind and the soul and guiding people through that process of unlearning and relearning the new way and then creating their ideal life, right? But pairing that with the utility and advantage of good nutrition and fitness in a way that works for them. Because fitness for Eric with the 500-pound deadlift and Jake from Blur out here, may look different than fitness for me, which is shooting some hoops, get my heart rate going, right? You're here to help people tap into the version of fitness and food and fun that feels right to them, and to integrate that as a part of their plan for success. And the other thing I wanted to touch on before we start wrapping up is you've hosted, I have a couple more questions. So you've hosted various events. We've collaborated on hosting events impacting thousands of people over the course of the last 26 or 28 months that we've been facilitating together. Can you elaborate on how community and connection influences, or not only influences, can you elaborate on how community and connection impacts the recovery process and developing a sustainable new way of living in life that's fulfilling? Like, how important is that? And what are some of the examples of events or things that you've done and examples that you've seen it have that impact?
So if we go back to my originating wound, I believe that my life started taking a turn when, like I was describing earlier, the connection with my dad on a daily level was changed, right? And so it was through the label of abandonment, but it was deeper than that. It was like I no longer had my safe person. I no longer had somebody that I knew was going to be there. I no longer had that connection with my dad in the house. Of course, we still had a connection. I still talked to him on the phone, but it was different. That visceral support wasn't there for me anymore. Of course, my mom was there, but she was also wearing all the hats now and working and doing all the things. So her presence was different, but community connection literally is the antidote for addiction. Because when someone gets sober, what happens after that? All of a sudden they're sober, and then what? They've gone to detox. Their chemistry is rebalanced. They are no longer dependent on a substance. But then what? If they haven't gone to the root and started doing the deep work, it's going to cause a revival of the same old patterns and emotions and chemistry that's happened before. We can't do this alone. Like, humans are not meant to be isolated or independent like forever. You know, I believe that through community and through connection and through support, if that means a community of sober people who want to do fun things all the time for free, check out thephoenix.org. You guys will love it. Free app, free events, just RSVP. The only entrance or cost of admission to all the Phoenix events is just 48 hours of sobriety. The idea is to include not just the person in recovery, but their friends, their family, their supporters, allies, people like me who want to be a part of the community and support and encourage. And like, I love hosting events and I love having friends and making friends and doing fun things. So why wouldn't I want to hang out with good, solid, like-minded, like healthy people, you know? And I'm not saying everybody's perfect, because we're not, but we all know what the club scene and the bar scene is like. We all know that that's not the best place to find a partner. And I'm not saying if you have found your partner at the bar, that's not a bad thing. But for the most part, like, humans genuinely crave deep connection at a soul level. And even in the very beginning of our podcast recording just now, you described me in a way that made me feel very seen and understood and validated. And like, it brought me so much joy and like positive energy and positive vibes in my experience to be seen and to be understood in that way. And so I believe that humans just genuinely, the human nature is to relate to each other. We were meant to be born into families, you know. Sometimes we are born into a family of a single parent. Sometimes we're born into siblings, like 10 siblings, you know what I mean? So it's different for everybody, but at the end of the day, we all need to have that friend that we can just call and connect to. We all need to have that person that we know has our back. Like, who's your person that you call when you're starting to feel like the thoughts creep in and your thought spiral is going south instead of north, and you're like, oh no, I need help. Like,
well, I have different friends for different things. There are some friends that I call when I'm contending with conflict and processing decision making. There are some friends that I call to discuss business ideas or to seek counsel, as the Ideal Boys say, right? So leaning into community and over the course of time, developing a diverse range of resources and pillars in our support network, right? People that we can call just to be able to vent or to process, right? People that we can call to share the word with or to read Proverbs at 7 a.m, right? People that we can call to do whatever it is that you identify as important in your experience, opening ourselves to aligning with and connecting with people who are also on that path and just seeing eye to eye and saying, I like that. Maybe we can habit stack and hold each other accountable for maintaining whatever practice or modality or principle that it is we see eye to eye on. So I just wanted to emphasize that community doesn't look one way, shape, or form. It's diverse. And to know that there are people out in this world that love the same things you love and want to create and achieve the same things you want. And if you don't know what you love, you don't know what you want, that's okay. Just know that that's where you're at and be open to receiving the next best step. Mm-hmm. Okay, we're back. What an amazing and diverse conversation. I'm so honored and grateful that we held the space to do this. I was really looking forward to speaking with you. And we just barely scratched the surface of the wealth of wisdom and knowledge that you've gained through your experience. And I appreciate you sharing what you've shared today.
Thanks.
Absolutely. And I look forward to continuing to witness, to bear witness to the impact and the absolute magic that you spread everywhere you go, you know? So with one final question, just to close out the episode, looking ahead, what do you envision for Man, this is an important question. I didn't know what the question was yet. Like one final question to close out the episode.
What if I just wanted to say a final comment?
Sure.
But do you have a question?
Any further questions or comments, my friends?
I think the most important thing that I could leave all of you guys with, if you're interested or even 1% curious to know how growing younger can benefit you, is to start observing your thoughts and give yourself permission to think about what you're thinking about, and give yourself permission to question yourself, and really just start taking a mental account of your mental faculties, and starting with the mind, because your mind is your literal control center of your whole experience. That is where our consciousness rests, because we are not our thoughts. We are the experiencer of our thoughts. If I said, don't think about a pink elephant, don't think about the pink elephant. Don't do it. Whatever you do, don't think about a pink elephant. Like, you've thought about the pink elephant and it just might be wearing a tutu or something. Our brains are wired to continuously grow, expand, express themselves, do, be, become, and expand. Like, we are literally expanding just like the universe is right now. Thinking about what you are doing and the actions and behaviors that you are doing versus trying to focus on what not to do next is a better way to approach. Because if someone was like, I'm going to get off drugs and quit my addictions and blah, 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 instead of saying, I am not addicted anymore, speaking and reframing by saying, I am sober. I am in a state of sobriety. I am a sober person.
Well, the way that I've heard it described is, just because I'm abstaining from substances doesn't mean that I'm leaning into the spirit of fulfillment and true gifted recovery. When I quit drinking and drugging, I have to replace those old patterns of behavior and habits with something that's going to enrich my life, something that sets my soul on fire. So to anyone who's listening, if you don't know what that is yet, that's okay. But just to know that the same vessel that consumed the sex, drugs, rock and roll, and was incessantly looking for an out, whether that was through compulsive consumption of the sugar or the caffeine or the food or the social media or whatever, the same vessel that engages in that process of consumption is just waiting for us to discover what it is that really brings meaning to our life and excitement and value. And that's one of the things I'm most excited for about Growing Younger Health and Wellness, is the adventures, right? The adventure experiences and the food, the fitness, the fun, the workshops, the programming that you have, right? I see big partnership opportunities between you and the Phoenix and Shaya and the wilderness, and just helping guide people back to a connection with whatever their thing is. Because your passion or interest or hobby may be different from mine, but the common golden thread is the fact that we were wired and designed to lean into the things that bring us life. And now that we've put the drugs down, or the vices, whatever that is, and moved into this next chapter, it's time to get curious. And my question for anyone who's listening, or for you, or for us all to ponder, is just, what sets your soul on fire? What brings you peace? Where do you find your serenity? And how can we usher in more of that into our lives and into our experiences?
If you had the opportunity to tell the whole world something, what would your soul scream?
I didn't even mention that you were an artist. That's a lyric from one of her singles. What would it be? What would your soul scream? Mine says, be free. Enjoy the freedom of the breath and sunshine in you and me. Even at midnight, you can see in the dark. That is In the Dark by Tinkahantis. You can find it on Spotify, Apple Music, YouTube, Pandora, Amazon, all that stuff. iHeartRadio. What would your soul scream? Yours says, be free. That's the final lyric and concept of the song. Hook, line, sinker, be free, baby.
So if I could just wrap up our conversation.
Yeah, we would go
forever, right? I'm such a nerd, okay? No, I really love talking about all these things. I'm super grateful to be featured today on the show. Thank you very much for having me.
Of course.
If I could leave you guys with something, just imagine yourself as a garden, okay? And if you haven't tended to your garden lately, if you haven't dug up the stones and the sticks and stones and all the things people have said to you, if you haven't gone back to the traumas, if you haven't gone back to where the wounds happened and haven't prepared your soil to receive the seeds, the things you try to grow probably aren't going to grow very well. It's not about adding seeds to the soil. It's about clearing the soil and clearing your land so you can have healthy ground and healthy, like a healthy space to receive some new idea or some new concept that you have the nutrient dense packed soil to grow that thing in. And the way that I've found what my passions are and what my desires are and what my, the thing that lights my soul on fire is through self-expression. It's through creativity, because we're either consumers or creators. There's no, or nothing. There's a neutral. We can just choose to do nothing, which is a waste, I think. So by nature, we all consume. We have to receive food, nutrients, clothing, electronics, a job, pay the bills, blah, blah, blah. We all know the things. But what are you producing in your life? Like, what is your art? What is your output? Mine, you've said it a few times, food, fitness, and fun. If I could literally be in the kitchen the rest of my life, every single day I would. I love food. I love food so much. I love healthy food. If I could cook for everybody all day nonstop, I would literally be the happiest person. Because knowing that I'm providing a meal that's full of nutrition, full of healthy, hopefully whole plant-based, not all plant-based, but naturally healthy, holistic, organic grown foods that are going to give your body the nutrients it needs to heal itself and do the things that it was designed to do. And then I get to watch you enjoy the meal. Oh my gosh. Food is art. Food is art. I love to cook. So if any of you guys want to come to one of the dinners or one of the hikes or one of our art nights or open mic nights or whatever the creativity workshops are, please join. Everybody's welcome. I really believe that helping us get back to the innocence of our youth through growing younger, but also through getting back to the inner child inside of all of us and living from a state of joy and from a state of peace. Because until we knew the world was dangerous, we didn't know the world was dangerous. And we lived in a state of not knowing the world was dangerous. Which was
hold up. I'm going to pause.
Awareness.
I don't receive that.
What I'm talking about is awareness. Let's hear it.
Challenge. Red card. I pattern interrupt on that thought. I live in a world of safety and security that comes from a deep place that does not change. I source my safety and my security in my rock, my redeemer, you know, my deep spiritual connection. And I know you do too.
Mm-hmm.
I just see, and that's the beauty of accountability and partnership, and having people that are in your mastermind and in your circle that will like, hold on a second, let's mindfulness with
Mm-hmm.
language, right? Like and not to say that what you're saying is wrong. Like there's some really, unfortunately, or see, I want to neutralize the way I'm talking about it. See, like, think about what I'm thinking about. The reality is that right now in our world, on this planet, there are some really, there are some very, very complex conflicts that are happening between groups of people on a large scale, culturally, and in individual homes and households, and even on a deeper level beneath that, within my own self, right? Before I even extend beyond self. But I think the fundamental shift in mindset, and like the golden thread throughout the whole episode today, talking about growing younger, talking about ideal, talking about mindset and mind, body, soul connection, is that the power of neutrality, observance, addressing, processing, unlearning, relearning, moving into a new chapter of what we do want out of life, seeing things for what they are, but then with honor and respect and acceptance moving forward, right? Like, I just want to bring us back to that, because that's one of the things that brings me the most peace, you know, and something that's been a gift that I've learned from you and through you, and a lot of our conversations, is that I can pause and I can remain neutral, and I can think, and I can change my mind, and I can be the observer, right? I don't have to enroll myself in the script anymore. So that was just, I felt like that was an opportunity for, hold on, pump the brakes. Like,
Call me out. I challenge it. If you guys think I'm saying something wrong, let's talk.
But it's not wrong.
But here's the thing. Let's talk, because I want to understand your perspective. I want to know what that means to you. Like, my perspective isn't the only right way. That's why I rebelled against God back in the day, is because someone told me that if I didn't do what I was told because it's the right way, that I wasn't going to make it. And so I said, I'm going to find out myself. Because I'm a little bit stubborn when it comes to just taking things at face value. I have to know why. I have to understand in my own way. And sometimes that's gotten me in trouble. Okay. But at the end of the day, I'm a scientist. I have to know like why the data is the way that it is. Okay. And ultimately, like, not just so I can have a bigger brain or know something that you don't. It's really more to where I can do some of the heavy lifting and translate these complex ideas and concepts into simple forms to be able to convey and help others with. You know, it's not about me knowing more than you. It's about me realizing that a lot of times the things that we're told to focus on aren't really important to the matter at hand. It's misdirection or misleading. Because when we get down to the root of the issue, it's under the surface, and we can't see the roots unless we dig it up. You know what I'm saying? I
do know what you're saying. There's just so much. It's so good. I just want to keep going. The last thing I'm going to say, and then we can do closing remarks, is it kind of reminds me of what Michael says, Michael Law. So we have a business coach with Ideal. Shout out Ideal, Master Your Habits, Master Your Life. And he says, identify a problem or an opportunity that you're currently facing, and specifically seek out wisdom or counsel or information on that problem, on that opportunity, something that's going to help you solve that problem. Because there's so much information out in this world. We could be consuming so many things that like probably very well would contribute to our growth, right? I could go watch, you know, what's his name? That guy that you like from Mind Valley.
Vishen Lakhiani.
I could go watch a Vishen podcast or course online about the power of the subconscious mind, or I could go watch, you know, a Tony Robbins, seminar, or I could go listen to a Jordan Peterson podcast about the psychological significance of the Bible. But the reality is I'm facing a very, very specific conflict and problem in my life right now that I need solutions to and answers for ASAP. And consuming content just because I can doesn't mean I should. So discerning, taking the time to pause, identifying what is it that I'm struggling with, what is it that I'm seeking answers to right now, and having gratitude that those problems are presenting themselves, because here and now I get to seek the resources, process through this, and then never deal with it again in the way that I'm dealing with it now, right? Mm-hmm. Those patterns are continuing to show up in my experiences. It's like the same lesson is presenting itself over and over and over again. Every couple years, it's like I'm met with this same part of myself that has held me back for so long. And it's time. It's time for me to kind of narrow my focus a little bit and, pinpoint what is it that I'm wrestling with most, and who, what, when, where, why, how am I going to solve it so that I can move forward and just internalize and integrate the information and move on to the next best thing.
Downregulate.
I just want to keep going.
Downregulate. That's all you got to do. And that's what growing younger is downregulation of beliefs and energy. And the last thing I'm going to say about all this, maybe not.
We've said that like 7 times. I do have to be somewhere by 7 though. So we got to, okay. Last thing I'm
going to say is, if you are the garden and you have this beautiful plant that's growing and it's you, but there's weeds growing all around it and it's choking out the life of this beautiful plant that you've planted, and you want it to be beautiful and you want it to live, but all these other like suckers around it are literally taking the energy necessary to make the plant healthy. Growing younger is about getting your hands in the dirt and pulling the weeds out. It's about saying, we got to get rid of this, we got to get rid of this, we got to get rid of this to make space, to make room for the healthy plant to thrive. It's about when you have a computer and you got to do a disk defrag, it basically condenses all the memory spaces into a chunk and frees up all these segmented memory spaces on the disk drive and concentrates it and combines it into a generalized area and deletes all the duplicate files, deletes the cache, deletes the cookies, all the things that are no longer necessary for the relevance of right now in the moment. Those are wiped out. So you've just freed up all this space in your psyche and your emotions, in your soul, in your heart, in your mind, what you believe. Then once you've done that, you can redefine your habits, your daily patterns to have better outcomes and better results. And once you understand that process, you can go and skip all of that and go straight to the results that you're looking for and reverse engineer all of it and just make it happen. But you got to start by getting your hands in the dirt, get your hands in your soul and say, I'm going to look at myself in the mirror right now and say, this is what I don't like. This is what I don't like. I got to do something about this, and just be honest with ourselves, because that's really the hard thing. Like I said, it's not about the answers we're looking for. It's about how are we going to ask ourselves the really hard questions that we really need to get to the bottom of it. And downregulation and growing younger and getting real with ourselves to do the shadow work is what I'm talking about. So if you guys want to continue the conversation, please find me. Instagram is grow.ing.younger. We can talk about checking your ing next time. Because what are you inging? Are you trying? Are you doing? Are you thriving? Are you crying? What is your ing? It's an action. So whatever the ing is in your experience, that's the patterns that are showing up for you. Whole nother concept, whole nother podcast, but I'd love to talk about it.
And the personal Instagram? Yeah,
my personal Instagram. If you want to learn more about me and my music, find me Tinkahontas, TINKAHONTAS.com, Instagram, Facebook, all the things.
Amazing. Well, once again, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Formerly Intoxicated Podcast. My name is Blake Mathews. It was an honor and a pleasure to have Miss Hannah Elizabeth, aka Tinkahontas, on the show today. And with that, we are out.
See you next time.